Hello everyone, myself Nidhi Pandya. Good afternoon to all. Today's my presentation topic is the role of the critic, Matthew Arnold, and the ethics of disinterested judgment in the digital age. So, these are my academic details, presentation details, and these are the table of contents. Here is my research question. In what specific ways can Matthew Arnold's demand for the critic's disinterested judgment, the pursuit of the real estimate over the subjective personal estimate, be practically applied as a sustained ethical framework and a cultural critique to contract the self reinforcing echo chambers and the algorithmic bias prevalent in contemporary digital media? Now, hypothesis. Arnold's concept is of the disinterestedness understood as an active intellectual labor towards the study of the perfection, provides a robust and the necessary ethical standard that, when the self-critically applied, functions as a powerful mode of a resistance against the digital partisanship and the monetization of the subjectivity and the ideological filtering imposed by the media algorithms. Here is the introduction that Arnold argued that the primary function of the criticism is to maintain a current of true and the fresh ideas within a society overwhelmed by the political and the religious fervor, emphasizing that the creative power of the 19th century was being stifled by an inadequate intellectual climate. For him, the critic's role was preparatory, serving as a conduit through the which future creative epochs could emerge. These emphasize on the generation and the circulation of the ideas, position criticism not merely as a moral or aesthetic enterprise, but as an essential intellectual force shaping the cultural consciousness of an age. Now, defining the disinterestedness, the idea, the core concept that the disinterestedness is not being apathetic or the unconcerned. Arnold defined it as a deep ethical rigor. Now, it requires the critic to actively check their own inherent bias as the self interest to find the pure truth. The critic must intentionally keep aloof from the immediate political figures of the practical views of things. Arnold made the pursuit of the culture perfection with the engagement of the best that is known as the thought in the world, a genuine moral and the intellectual mission. The here given article shows that this study draws towards the study of perfection, now elevates the critical task and demanding that the loyalty to be truth, not current traits. Now, Arnold's method to see the object itself, to Arnold's famous goal to see the object as itself is really is of call for intellectual humanity. Now it demands and depends upon the word that we actively strips away our prejudices, personal likes and dislikes, and inherited from the doctrines. Now these and those self-disciplined act of the critical detachment ensures that our evolution of the standards and liking and disliking are not that much of that level. Now the failure to achieve this, says Arnold, leads to arbitrary and mistaken the judgments. True criticism thus circulates ideas based upon the objective worth, not the transitional opinions. Now the danger of the personal estimate, that the personal estimate is the fundamental enemy of the disinterestedness. When simple affection or a political convention starts to control our judgment, we stop being impartial critic and become mere partisans. Now, Arnold identified this as a systematic failing that prevents us making the true decision or the about the truth of a particular thing. Now, it progresses and lead to a decline of the critical spirit, and as a distance rise, that his warning against the historical estimate also reminds us that the works of immediate popularity or fleeting relevance does not automatically qualify it. Now, this is the lasting real estimate. Now, the Arnold is a critic of the ideology Arnold acted a powerful cultural reformer by critiquing the narrow self-interestedness belief of the Victorian society. What he categorized as the barbarians, Philistines, and the populace, that his entire project was about the liberating the mind and from having to choose a side. This free play of the mind is the ethical role which play in the disinterestedness. It is an essential ability to assess and challenge the ideas without being rigidly confined by one's own ingrained partisans or the class positions. Now, these grounds are which political leaders proceeded, making his work a profound act of resistance against the dogmatism. Now, a digital age of the challenge that the partisanship and the fragmentation. The fragmentation of the authority online serving undermines Arnold's vision for a shared culture, that a critical engagement is now often replaced by the commercial metrics and like clicks, shares, and liking and disliking, making the personal estimate go away from the real estimate, financially rewarding and the pervasive. Now the modern critic often functions as the consumer or the content creator, driven by the speed and the need of the sell literature rather than the objectively evaluating it. And for one thing that the Murray has also mentioned, that this fractures the current of ideas and the leads to isolate the echo chambers driven by the immediate commercials success rather than the literary quality. Now the algorithm filters and the loss of the objectivity. Digital in disinterestedness is a fundamentally a technological challenge. Algorithm acts as a non-human critics, constantly reinforcing our existing biases and effectively blocking the intellectual our discovery. Now this is a personal estimate by click, and the mentally Arnold warned against only amplifying the globally. The critic's ethical task now requires a cultural critique that analyze the platforms underlying ideologies and the frameworks. The modern critic as a culture authority. Now, the modern critic must regain the culture authority by modeling Arnold's detachment and prioritizing the real estimate, not the personal estimate. A work's lasting worth over its fleeting online impact. Their main role is now that of a public educator who must promote reason and justice by constantly circulating new and striking ideas. But everyone is again only following the trends, and authority should be earned through the consistent fidelity to the Arnold's high standards, urging readers to recuperate the Arnold self-critically. Now, the ethical improvement, the study of the perfection. Arnold's critic project is ultimately a profound moral vision driven by the messianic desire for collective cultural improvement. The study of the perfection, as a article describes it, that the disinterestedness simply provides the necessary method. By seeing clearly, we can identify the flaws and the progress toward the harmonious perfection. It insist on the actively surpassing the prejudice and the passion on particular subject. Now the application of the touchstone method and the standard, that the Arnold's touchstone method is a practically powerful tool for achieving the disinterestedness. It involves using the memorable lines and the expression of the great measures or the masters. Now, as the objective measuring sticks, this technique forces the critic to resist the bias of novelty and the damaging the relativism which is our pervasive online. It really strength lies in the intellectual discipline. It requires compelling us to search for the real estimate over our transientness. Now the subjective test is also. Now, by measuring it, the true culture value is measured by only the universality and the morality into that particular work. Now, the enduring relevance of the Arnold's ethics, that Arnold's ethics demand to avoid becoming a clique follower is crucial for combating tribalism today. Disinterestedness is a function as a powerful mode of resistance. Now, John said that against the commercial and the highly partisan pressures of the modern media, by the insisting on the real estimate, Arnold provides a clear antidote to the shallow click-driven nature of the online content, or what Murray refers to as the digital transformation of the print culture processes. His framework restores intellectual rigor to the culture conversation, reason, rejecting the personal or the political loyalty. The ultimate goal is to secure the recognition for the great work for the wider world. Now, not just a small and devoted fan group. So, my conclusion here is the recorrupting the Arnold's critical project, that the Arnold provides a necessary ethical improvement, the ethical pursuit of the truth over the self interest. The digital age, characterized by the algorithm bias and the hyper partisanship, desperately needs Arnold's call for a free play of the mind. The modern critic's role is to act as a counter force, forcing critically, literally, in a culture that rewards emotional reaction over reason analysis. The essential lesson is that uninterestedness is not disinterestedness, and ignoring biases is not transcendenting them, but Arnold thus provides the intellectual equipment needed to undertake a cultural critique of the digital sphere itself. Now, my hypothesis is justify here that the Arnold's warning against the personal estimate anticipate the today crisis of the subjectivity, as the Dickstein observe its decay into the subjective online reviews that the signal of the decline of the critical spirit. Goodhart positions Arnold as a critic of ideology, offering a framework to challenge foundational of the beliefs and a model vital for the confronting the digital mediums inherent ideologies biases. Disinterestedness, far from being passive, and the uninterestedness represent an active self-critical level, providing the only effective defense against the emotional and the partisan appeals to engagement-driven culture. Ultimately, the Arnold's ethical drive towards the study of the perfection elevates that the criticism into an act of culture resistance, demanding a shared real estimate in a place of a fragment and monetized opinion. So these are the key points throughout my presentation: disinterestedness as an ethical imperative, and the critical as an intellectual force, danger of the personal estimate, and the critique of the ideology, digital age challenges, and the touchstone method, modern application within the study perfection, and the role of a modern critic. These are my learning outcomes as I have learned from the Matthew Arnold. Just do not give only the personal estimate, but within the real estimate, critics should judge the work impartially, avoiding the personal bias, and give the everyone what is moral and universally true, and every critic should get this idea within this. So these are my references from which I have taken my presentation details. Thank you everyone. If anyone have now questions, please shoot out the question.
So my question is, how can Arnold's principles help us to maintain cultural standards in an age of viral trends?
So now Arnold's principles help us maintain culture standards as a viral, that he says just do not be this our culture needs a lasting value, and that is why we should not follow the transient virals and everything. By applying the disinterestedness and the morality and the real estimate and the touchstone method, we can value our culture, and our things will be kept very well, will be kept very well, and the truth will remain very much into the any particular work or into any kind of situation or in kind of society. So the priority must be to the disinterestedness. This will be my answer.
Question is to you. Could Arnold's study of perfection be applied to global ethics beyond literature?
Yes, Arnold's studies are perfect. Study of perfection can be applied to the globally ethics beyond our literature, as if we include and represent the reason and the morality and the universality by striving the intellectual and ethical rigors, societies and the science and any particular policy and media can be valued, and the disinterestedness may be ensures us that the decisions we make upon that will be long term and for the well-being of the society, and will give us the main idea about what society will be like and what the real truth behind every single situation about our particular uh, particular advantages or the society and everything. Thank you so much, everyone. This is from my side.